Aren't you glad to know where you're going? Amen. And if you don't know where you're going, I would suggest coming over to the Jesus team so that we can all go together. Thank you, Renee, for that song. And while I was over there, God said to keep your head up. God said that he's going to do something that you've never seen before, and he's wrapping things up. So to me, that's good news. When he's wrapping stuff up, that's good news. Because when I was listening, he could have said, hang on, you haven't even really started yet. But luckily, he said he's wrapping things up. So I'm looking forward to the day when we can see that package and see what it is and then move on. I want to thank each and every one of you, because if you step up and do your part, then we all succeed. I can't do what you're supposed to do. And you can't do what I'm supposed to do. And that's why in the Bible, it said to run the race that's set before you. He didn't say to run your brother's race or your sister's race. He said to set and run the race that's before you. I don't know if any of you have been to track meets before, or maybe you were the runner, or if not, you've watched on TV, and they will have a few little signals, words that they will say. And one of them is on your mark. That means you need to get on your mark for your race, not your competitor's mark. And they won't start the race if you're not on your mark. You've got to be on your mark. And then they tell you to get set. That means you need to look where you're going. And in the Bible, it tells us to keep our eyes on Jesus. And then it says go. So I want to read a couple of scriptures tonight that kind of talks about the race on one hand, and the other, it kind of talks about comparison and what that will do to you and I should we start to compare. The first that I want to read is in the book of Hebrews, chapter 12, and verses 1 through 2. Therefore, we also, since we are surrounded by a great cloud of witnesses, let us lay aside every weight and the sin which so easily ensnares us, and let us run with endurance the race that is set before us. Where do we look? Looking unto Jesus, the author and the finisher of our faith, who for the joy that was set before him endured the cross, despising the shame, and has sat down at the right hand of the throne of God. So they tell us when we're running this race, where we're supposed to be looking. We're supposed to keep our eyes focused on Jesus. Now, I want to read what happens when you don't keep your eyes on Jesus. I want to read in 1 Samuel chapter 18 and verses 5 through 9. And we're talking about King Saul here. And King Saul was the first king of Israel. And there was a tormentor that was tormenting his people, and they were called the Philistines. And they were big and they were mighty. And they couldn't find anybody to come against them. And David, this little scrawny shepherd boy, because he was insulting his God, he said, why haven't you guys taken him out? Do you not hear the insults that he is spewing to us? And the armies got together and they made a deal. They said, if you can conquer Goliath, we will serve you. But if Goliath conquers the one that you send out, then you will be our servants, our slaves. Well, David slew Goliath, and Saul even invited him into his palace. And it was all good until this point. It said, so David went out wherever Saul sent him and behaved wisely. And Saul set him over the men of war, and he was accepted in the sight of all people and also in the sight of Saul's servants. Now it had happened as they were coming home, when David was returning from the slaughter of the Philistine, that the women had come out of all the cities of Israel singing and dancing to meet King Saul with tambourines, with joy and musical instruments. It was a party to stop all parties. And these women sang as they danced, and they said, Saul has slain his thousands Oh, but here we go. And David, his 10,000s. Then Saul was very angry, and the saying displeased him. And he said, they have ascribed to David 10,000s, and to me they have ascribed only thousands. Now what more can he have but the kingdom? So Saul eyed David from that day forward. What happened is he started to compare. Rather than King Saul seeing that as a victory for his kingdom, he started keeping his eye on David, not on the goal where he was supposed to go. See, God sets a race before each of us. And to run this race successfully, you got to keep your eye on the prize. The prize is Jesus. You got to start on your mark and not on their mark. When you run a race, if you're looking to the left and to the right, I can almost predict there's going to be a crash in your future. It's going to slow you down. When somebody's chasing you, one of the worst things that you can do is turn around to see how close they are behind you. You've just cost yourself some seconds and maybe your life. You're supposed to run straight ahead, not looking and seeing what your competitors are doing and how close they are. You got to keep your eyes on your lane. Now, before we get too confusing with this, though, it's okay to look at other ones that have succeeded in an area that you want to succeed in if they inspire you and if they convict you to do better. But if they condemn, make you feel condemnation because of where you are, or make you feel despair, then you're in troubled ground because now you're starting to compare. And you can't compare because no one is made like you. Nobody has the walk that you walk. Nobody has the plan for your life like you do. You can only do what God has set you to do. And you have blessings stored up in heaven that's designed just for you. It's not your brother's blessings. It's not your sister's blessings. But if you keep your eyes so much on them, you might lose a blessing that's coming to you because you're doing nothing but looking at what they have. In the game of comparison, there's no winner. Nobody wins. And comparison is Satan's number one weapon of mass destruction. Why is it that he uses that? Well, comparison is what got him booted out of heaven. See, he was made to lead the praise and worship team. And he was beautiful beyond any other angel that God had created. But he started to compare. And he started wanting the attention that God was getting, and he wanted to raise himself up over God's throne. And because of that, he got kicked out of the praise and worship team. Comparison is what did him in. And it says that the whole goal of Satan is to steal, kill, and destroy. And comparison can do all three of those. Comparison can kill your joy. Social media is really good for the comparison. You can be all excited about your trip to Branson and thankful for it. And then you get on social media and you see that one of your friends has just spent the week in Paris. And all of a sudden, now your trip to Branson doesn't seem that great. And then now you're a little bit envious. You're a little bit jealous. So what will comparison do? It will kill your joy. Comparison will destroy your peace. Oh, you used to be content and happy with your little house. You used to be peaceful when you walked in. And you were grateful to have a place to lay down your head. But then your coworker shows them the picture of the house that they just got. Now all of a sudden, you don't have peace when you walk into your house. Now all of a sudden you're ashamed and you're feeling pitiful. Oh, see, it just destroyed your peace. Comparison will steal everything from your life. Comparison is like a cancer to contentment. You can't be content when you're comparing yourself to others. Paul in the Bible said that to compare yourself to others was to not use wisdom. Because, see, he wants you to run the race that's set before you. Comparison will cloud the call of God on your life. If you ever want to be confused about what God's called you to do, then just start comparing yourself to someone else who's called to do something similar. That's the trick of the devil. God has given you unique abilities and unique talents, and he has blessings that is just for you at the right time. But if you start thinking, poor, pitiful me, I wish I had, looking at what they had, you'll lose it all. See, because with each blessing, there was some work that came along with that. There was some heartache that came along with that. There were some sleepless nights. And it's wrong for us to decide that we want the BMW in the driveway when we can't get out of bed and go to work. It won't happen. Sorry, spoiler alert. The person that had the BMW, they got out of bed when they didn't feel like getting out of bed. They stayed a little bit later when everybody else went home. They didn't go to all the parties and the vacations. They saved their money. So if you're willing to do what they've done, then let it inspire you. But don't compare yourself to it. Don't compare yourself saying, oh, all I have is just this little bicycle, and they've got this brand new car. Maybe that brand new car is about this close from being repoed. And you can ride your bicycle with peace and a smile on your face and living for God, and they're over there contemplating stealing from their employer so that they can make the payment. They can't sleep at night because insurance rates are going to go up. See, don't compare where you are in Christ with somebody else. I used to have that problem because I would come to church, and while God would move on me one way, I wasn't screaming and shouting and jumping a pew. And if I started comparing, I would say, what's wrong with me? Well, see, that was their walk. They were anointed to do that. My walk was different than their walk. But if I would try to be like them, that would bring me confusion. I would feel like a phony, and I wouldn't be running my race. I'd be trying to crowd them out of the lane, and we would both trip and fall, and neither one of us would finish first place. When I first took over the pulpit, one of my first thoughts is, how do I need to be now? God said, I called you to be you. I was really glad because I couldn't fill those shoes. Those shoes my father had were too big, and I would have looked really funny walking in them. And we didn't need him again. See, he did what he was supposed to do. There was just one of him, and he fulfilled his race. So if I would come along and try to be what he was, then I would not be running my race. And I wouldn't accomplish what God wanted me to do. The same with you. Let somebody else inspire you if they have things that you want. If they've reached certain places in their ministry, let it inspire you. But don't let it feel bad about you. See, some preachers can speak loudly and they'll be all over the place and they're sweating and they can get everybody to their feet. And if that's their race, you can tell it and you can feel it. But it's really wrong for other people to compare you to somebody else. When somebody prays out loud and they have a pretty prayer, you shouldn't feel bad that your prayer is not as pretty. Because God made you you. And your prayer that's not as pretty may have moved mountains. God needs you to embrace who you are and celebrate who you are. We should be happy and celebrate each other's successes because God is a God of success. And when we celebrate their successes, we know that ours is that much closer. But if we don't celebrate theirs, we've just backtracked. We're going back to the starting line, and I don't want to do that. I want to run the race that's before me. Because see, if I try to run somebody else's race, their requirements might be a whole lot harder than mine. And I don't want to have to do that. I've gotten kind of used to my race, and that's where I want to stay. He has placed within you everything that you need to fulfill your destiny. Everything that you need is already there. It was placed inside of your DNA before you took your first breath. That's how just and loving our God is. Wouldn't it be so bad if he called you to do something and then he said, well, I know I haven't given you everything you need, but maybe you can borrow your brothers or your sisters. Everything he's ever called you to or will call you to, you already have everything that you need. You already have all the talent that you need, all the spiritual education that you need, all the patience that you need. It's all within inside of you and I. We just have to bring it to the surface. Amen. You can have a treasure chest full of gold and still lose your house if you don't open up that lid and dig it out. It's there, but are you going to use it? So the only reason that we feel fearful when God has asked us to do something is because we've started to compare ourselves to somebody that we think is bigger and stronger and smarter than us. I'm so glad that God didn't call me to be anybody else because I don't know how to be anybody else but me. God called you to be you. Celebrate who you are. He could have made you so many different ways, but he made you just like he wants you to be. You might say, well, I wished I was taller. Well, if you were supposed to be taller, you would have been taller. Right. Well, I wished I was shorter. If you were supposed to have been shorter, you would have been shorter. God designed you and made you just for what he has called you to do. I think that's amazing. When you run your race, there's 2 lines, and you're supposed to stay within those 2 lines. And one of those lines, running the race of life, is what I'm going to call a universal line. Everybody has the same goal. The same goal is to be more Christ-like each and every day. That's our one line that we're supposed to stay in between. On the other side, you have another line, and that one, I'm going to call that your unique line. That is for you to take whatever your occupation is, your career, whatever role you play in life, and to be more Christ-like through that. I never want somebody to say, well, I am just a teacher. You're not just a teacher. See, God has put you on that race, and he wants you to be just a teacher so that you can show that classroom what it would be like if Jesus taught. You have the example to represent Jesus on earth. Some might say, well, I just cut hair. No, you're not just a hairstylist. You are a hairstylist that can represent your Savior to everybody that comes into that salon. They can see what it would be like if Jesus was a hairstylist. See, that's your unique lane. But the devil, if he has you comparing, you will put that just in front of it. Oh, I'm just. No, you're so much more than just. How do we know if we are starting to compare and go down that slippery road? It's because it will be things like this. Well, Sure, they got another raise on their promotion, on their job. Wished I could. I'm afraid I'm going to lose my job. Well, going to another wedding. Everybody's getting married except for me. I've been fasting and I've been praying and paying my tithes. Everybody's been getting married except for me. Or wish I could have a house like that. Everybody else has a nice house. I just live in this apartment building. And then if you are really going down that slippery slope, that downward spiral, you don't want to admit it, but secretly, you want them to fail. Secretly, you want things to blow up in their face. Then you can be the Christian and come along and say, oh, I'm really so sorry, I'll pray. As you walk off with a little smile of going, yeah, now we're on level ground a little bit more now. See, if you do that, you're going backwards in your race. And those things that you wanted so badly, that you focused on so hard, will never come to you if you feel bad towards those that have it. See, comparison, what it will start to do is it will slowly eat away at you. At first, it's really no big deal. And then all of a sudden, there's a little bit of envy that sets in. In the Bible, it said, don't covet what your brother or what your neighbor has. A little bit of envy first, then a little bit of sadness, and then a little bit of bitterness. And then now we're angry at the world and we're angry at God. Why? Because the devil went in and he started you looking around saying, well, look what they have. Look who they are. Look what they get all the time. And he's blinded you to the blessings that are just yours. See, some people, I've heard people say, oh, well, they have a really nice house. And they say, yeah, but they inherited that. Okay. Do you know what it cost for them to inherit that? Somebody died. Somebody maybe they loved greatly. So we have to be very careful of the shiny little dangling carrot in front of our eyes, because the enemy wants to distract you. He wants you to think that you should be further down the road by now. You should have all of these material things by now. You should have had traveled so many other places. You should have done so much. That's the devil. Yes. You need to stop and think about the person on the side of the road that you stopped and helped when everybody else walked by. You need to think about the time that you got down on your knees and prayed for somebody that probably nobody else was praying for. You need to look at the things that you do and celebrate you. That will get you faster down that track than anything. And I promise, if your heart's desires is to have a house like somebody else has, you keep running your race. You keep doing the things that God's showing you to do, and you'll have a house like that. But run your race. But run it with pride. I almost wish that we could put spiritual blinders on like we do horses, so they don't look anywhere else. They just keep their eyes straight on Jesus. But if you compare yourself to what somebody else has, it will destroy you. Celebrate you. He has given you grace to run your race. Haven't you met people that when you hear their story, you would say, I don't think I could stand that. I don't know how you survived through that. Well, it's because you didn't have the grace to do that, because that wasn't your lane. Haven't you had times in your life when you say, if it wasn't for the grace of God, I don't know where I would be. I don't know what I would do. Well, it's because God gave you grace for your situation. Run it like only you can run. Fix your eyes on Jesus. And as I close tonight, I want to say just like they do in the race, get on your mark, get set, and go. Let's run this race like we've never run before. And quit comparing yourself. You are okay just like you are. If you don't feel God the other ways that people feel God, there's nothing wrong with you. It means that he has a unique relationship with you that's different. I know there was a few times in services past, and I thought, oh, I am in so much trouble, because my father would say, well, if you don't feel that, you're dead. And I'd be like, oh, no, because I didn't feel a thing. But there was other services that some people weren't feeling anything, and I couldn't quit crying. I was just moved to tears. I was so grateful for his presence. Don't let the enemy beat you up anymore. You be you, because you're the only one that can be you. And God doesn't need you to be somebody else. He can't use you if you're somebody else. So get ready, get set, let's go. God bless you.